For example, asking questions. So we have a strategy called the self-questioning strategy, in which we teach students how to, as they're reading a text, look for clues. Maybe it's italicized words or questions, things that make them wonder. Okay? And when they come across something like that, then they ask a question about it. And we teach them how to ask a question. And then the next step of the strategy is to read and seek an answer to that question. And then they say it quickly in their mind. Now, we're breaking that down into very discrete steps. And initially, it's pretty clunky and awkward because that's not, we don't make it that explicit when we're actually reading. But we do that in a scaffolded way. And then as students get some practice doing that, generally in materials that are a little bit easier for them to grapple with, so they can learn the strategy, become fluent with it, and then start to apply it to grade level materials and generalize it to other areas, and then they become more fluent over time. That changes them as a learner. So we're teaching them how to learn.
So it becomes second nature.
That's right. So we're teaching them how to learn like good learners.
I think something that the teacher coaches told me fits into this strategy. They were teaching the class to infer. And so they kidnapped the dean of students and they had to infer from clues where she was, and they eventually found her, and then they taught them some movements that went with infer, and it was a very, very entertaining, creative, and I think productive unit. So I think if that's the kind of thing our teacher coaches are doing, you know, times 100, that we're very lucky here at Sacred Heart. When I talked to Marsha Couple, who I guess is, you know, working with you and bringing you in here to help us with, especially she said evaluation of how we're doing, she said that your research is validated, and she said that is so huge because people can, you know, talk the talk, but that you have the research to back it up. Can you give me any examples of research that has been done that, you know, helps you realize, yes, we are doing the right thing?
Well, it's two important standards. When it's research validated, meaning that it's undergone the scientific methods that let you infer that if we teach and a particular intervention, so the example of the reading comprehension Don was describing, that if we have an intervention that it is taught according to the recipe, and that the recipe then gets implemented by the student in the end, and we see those changes, the causal model says, oh, what we taught must have made a difference. Because now we've got a control group over here who didn't get that recipe, and their performance didn't change any more than we would just expect.
And so you have studies like that show that?
Yes, numerous over the many years of the center's work. So there's been an emphasis on the scientific validation of the work. But Don made a point yesterday here. You don't want just a statistically significant result, which is what science generally, we're satisfied if we made a statistical impact or statistical difference. But we want the social impact. That is, it has a meaningful impact in the life of the student. And that is a much higher standard than just being statistically significant.
How do you assess such?
Well, if you go from a failing grade to a passing grade, that's an important one, right? If you've reduced truancy or tardiness at a statistically significant level, but now the students are glad to be in school, they come with a different attitude. I think that's part of that social significance.
So it makes an obvious difference in the quality of their performance and how they see themselves, how they feel about themselves in school. That's when you start to move into social in that.
So then here at Sacred Heart, are you going to help us develop tools of some sort to assess, or is it going to be more anecdotal on how our teacher coaches are doing? Say, for instance, on the unit on infer, there's the students obviously involved. Where do we go from there?
At this point in time, we're still
Learning about us.
Well, and we're trying to, in the process of doing that, then say what may make sense as to a way forward. Because first of all, there's wonderful things. And I would say our first goal is to do no harm and not to disrupt things that are really happening. But education is a dynamic field. So many things are available to us today that weren't available to us even 2 years ago. And so our first task is to get a lay of the land and then make an assessment in terms of how might we take some of the new things that are being developed and add them to the good things that are taking place here. So we're in the process of doing that now.
It isn't something that we would do.
Yeah.
We're not the doctors giving you a prescription.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of our work has always been very collaborative with the schools or
Yeah.
the agencies with whom we've worked. And
Yeah.
you have to build that agenda together so both of us feel like we contribute value to that task.
And so most
Yeah.
directly you'll be working with, Marcia, but she's not here that often, but then with Marjorie, who's our curriculum person, and then with our 2 teacher coaches, Sue.
Again, you get to put the team together. So,
Yeah.
as Don said,
Yeah.
you build this
Okay.
agenda, and then we'll figure out with whom is the
Yeah.
best for us to work.
Yeah.
And now-
It cannot, listen, in order for things to effectively change, it can't be something that is imposed from the outside. And especially with the history, the legacy that exists here at the school, the very positive culture that exists, there are things that need to be really protected and carefully built upon. And that's why it's essential, as Daryl said, that you all identify who should be at the table for different things that would be worked on. And then the solution for what we might go after would be jointly constructed and worked on. So it's not something that we're bringing here from Kansas at all. We're just bringing our experiences and putting those on the table, and if they're relevant and can be helpful, that's fine.
And how often do we anticipate having contact with you, either by your being here or by, us calling you up at your office in Kansas?
Again,
Do
those
we have
things,
any kind, we don't have that figured out yet?
no, those things.
And that might come out of these few days you're spending here, a joint agreement on what would work best.
Depends on how mild your winter is.